for coaches? Go ahead, Wendy.
Um, well, that's a pretty big question. Uh, well, I think the competencies are important, and I even think the rules that some of the coaching bodies put in place are important. Some of them are stronger than others. And even within their codes, at times they have rules embedded in their codes. And I think they're important as well because they help give you a process if you are encountering a particular something. It doesn't mean it's giving you your decision making, but it's giving you a process if you ever go there. But how we encounter it is just through our everyday interactions in our relationships with ourselves, with our coaching client, or even as a leader. That ethics shows up in the judgments we make, the way we treat people, the way we treat ourselves, and how we and then what courses of action we take. So I don't see this as just being ethics in and of itself. I've decided to bring the word ethicality into being so as it helps bridge the gap between the things that we know and think about and then how when we take and how we take action. So for me, ethicality helps bridge that gap, and there's a huge gap in what we know and what we do. The research tells us there's a massive gap, so we need to do a lot more work on that.
Yogesh, your thoughts to build on what Wendy is sharing?
Yeah, I think just a quick thought on that is that ethics is a very personal trait. If I'm ethical, I would be ethical in everything I do, whether I'm a leader or I'm a coach or I'm a father or I'm a mother. So this is a very, very personal value system. And that gets displayed more in leadership and, of course, coaching when we are into that space. So I think this is a very important part because if I'm not ethical, I don't come across as a worthy leader or as worthy coach also. So that's where I kind of leave it there.
Yeah, thanks, Yogesh. And
I
Wendy,
actually
when you
think,
see, go ahead,
can I add
go
to
ahead, go
that?
ahead, go
That
ahead.
I think being ethical or not ethical is not binary. And I like to think that we're on a dimension and we can, I'd like to consider myself as a fairly ethical person most of the time, but there are some circumstances that I might find myself in that are totally novel, and I have to really think through. So this concept about, am I ethical? Well, I would be, in that I stop and think about what's going on rather than running blindly through all of
Mm.
my scenarios. But does that make me wholly ethical? I don't know. Not if I'm not taking action on it, right? And then I need to lean into ethicality because I actually take action on something. But there might be some circumstances where I choose not to take any action. And I go, why would I do that? And how ethical am I being if I'm not doing that? So I like
Yeah.
to move away from the binary and think it's dimensional and context related. And I'm sure Yoga, he's probably thinking, yeah, I know that, but she just pulled me up on that binary
Uh,
language.
you know what? You guys, you remind me of a great leader, the father of our nation, Mahatma Gandhi. He was always advocating the truth. He says that the truth wins all the time. But he made an exception. He said that if, a falsehood can make somebody's life, save somebody's life, then it is worth, being, at that point in time. So those are the moments where we go in all standards. Yeah, at the end of the day, it is a personal choice, what I do in that particular situation.
Yeah.
And I think partly building on what both of you are saying is it's about how we show up in actions and aligned with the intent as we show up as coaches and leaders. So I both invite both of you to share classical dilemmas which leaders and coaches face around this area. So from your experience, what kind of situations where a coach or a leader has to see through the ethical lens or ethicality lens, which Wendy says. Wendy, you want to go first?
Um, you know, The first thing that comes to my mind, which I don't want to speak to, is politics. That's just like too wild a conversation to go into here.
That's a big
So,
ocean.
but I dare say there are so many instances that arise that even I, in my position, have found myself having to kind of sit back and go, wow, what the hell's going on here? What the hell am I going to do? And it's a real challenge to figure that out. To think of a specific dilemma. It's a good question, but I wasn't quite prepared to bring a real life scenario to bear. So I hope you're thinking of one, Yogesh, while I'm mumbling along, scrambling my brain to work. So
Yeah.
I'm just thinking that I every year I hold a conference. It's a virtual conference, and I have the recordings open for a period of time after the conference. And I have that in place, and it's it could range from a month to 3 months or 4 months, depends on what's happening. And I have that open intentionally so people who couldn't attend the full time of the conference can watch the recordings and then complete a reflection journal that they can go about and claim their CPD points. And it seems to me that it doesn't matter how clearly I articulate the time frames or the rules around it, that, dare I say it, coaches keep trying to push the boundaries with a whole host of reasons why they weren't able to get in before the due date. The challenge for me is, do I let them through? Do I extend it? Or do I hold tight because everyone's there under the same conditions? And I still don't know the right answer. And I don't even know if there is a right answer that's going to govern everything. The first time it happened was because of Ukraine war, and the Ukrainians wanted to have more time to submit, and so I allowed that to happen. And lo and behold, none of them actually took advantage of the extra time. And I thought, well, what was the point of all that and the time it took me to think about it? But I still think it was the right decision for compassionate grounds, exceptional compassionate grounds, to give more flexibility for everyone. Not just those people, but everyone had that flexibility, that extra time. So there was no favoritism. So I think it was an okay decision, right? It's just I had to communicate it. But then there's another time where there were other rationales that brought forward to, I've been traveling and couldn't get in on time. I've been this, that, the other. It's amazing. All the normal human rationales that you have for needing to have an extension. And those ones I've ended up just declining. And I'm okay with that. So I think I'm getting clearer as I speak now, to what a clear, I guess, rule that seems ethically sound that I would take forward on that conundrum. So that's me as a leader in the coaching space. Just one example that shows up in multitude of ways for me in my work anyway. So I'm sure there are other leaders who can position these kinds of decisions for their own space as well. Is that enough time for you, Yogesh, to pull something out of the hat?
Well, no, yeah,
People are loving that vulnerability, Wendy.
yeah. So you're so transparent and vulnerable. That's one of the characteristics of a coach, right? So you're showing up as a coach also here, what behavior you need to display and demonstrate. So that's a great thing to do. My only thing I want to add here is, because ICF has mandated ethicality, ethics as a competence also, which need to be constantly displayed. So I think the belief there is that you can learn to be ethical, right? And as you rightly said, and that can get reflected in basic behaviors. Am I on time? I'm kind of being vulnerable. Am I kind of pushing the agenda because I want to push it, and so on and so forth. So I think ethics has got many dimensions. Some of them are controllable, and some of them are controllable, but we don't control. That's where the dilemma lies. For example, I can be on time for a coaching session, or I can be vulnerable, I don't. No, that is a very conscious personal choice I do in a context. And that's how life goes. So thanks a lot for that adding, Wendy. That's a great thought. Thank you.
Someone made a comment, so, when did the band on Titanic to give time for passengers to get off?
And only provided boats to the rich and famous.
A common question which falls into this arena, and I know we have a lot of coaches who are joining from different parts of the country today, and I speak on their behalf. Often they come across a situation where when they are halfway through or fairly ahead in the coaching conversation journey with them, and the client says, my coach, yeah, so far so good. We have worked on the agenda laid down by the sponsors and stakeholders, but time has come for me to move on from the organization. Help me negotiate my exit from the organization. And as we say, we follow dance with the client. Now, how would a coach is how does coach can respond to this kind of a situation? It's a very common question which comes up in areas of ethics.
Yogesh?
No, you go ahead.
Wendy, you are in spot today.
I'm not inclined to give a directive answer for what someone should be doing. But I would like to ask you all to sit in that circumstance and hold the tensions and say, what is it about that that's difficult for me? What's showing up? Where do I feel it? What are the other circumstances that are involved that are influencing how I'm feeling and my decision here? What are the multiple possible things that I could do? Who would they impact in what pathway I took? Who have I got to support me to walk one particular way or another? And then when I choose the pathway, what's my rationale for doing so that makes it the better decision, the better pathway, or the one that I choose to walk rather than the others? Then I want to ask, what else do I need to help me walk that and make that action happen? Because I need support. I'm only one person.
Yeah.
And I need to feel supported and cushioned, and maybe I need some skills, maybe I need more knowledge, maybe I just need some courage. So what am I going to do to get all those elements that are going to help me walk the pathway I need to walk? And then am I prepared for whatever the outcome might be?
Right.
Am I ready, solid enough to hold it, whatever it might be? It might have a negative outcome. We're not assured of that. I dare say, though, once we have a very clear rationale as to why we're taking a particular course of action and why, and the supports that we have around us, we're going to feel a hell of a lot more confident to take the action we need and to have the courage to do so. I much prefer to answer dilemmas by helping people understand how they got to go about finding their own way than passing it apart and giving other people direction on their own dilemma.
Yeah.
That's a beautiful way. I think it's about reflecting internally and the path which I can hold for myself today, tomorrow, and day after also. Because part of ethics is also being true to yourself. Yogesh, build on that.
Yeah, so I look at it in a slightly with a different lens, because to me the dilemma here is that, has he informed his the company or organization that is contemplating that? Because if he or she has done that, then there's no moral or ethical pressure on me. The moral or ethical pressure comes when he wants to discuss with me and he's not disclosed it to his leader or the HR or whatever the process is. So he has violated the process. I won't say violated, but that's a choice he has made, because there's no violation if you want to quit the organization. And so I generally, these situations come, I ask a question. First question is, does your organization know? Right? And 99% time they say no, they don't know. And that is where, the discussion, the choice I have to make, and he has to make a choice. But the coaching conversation happens as even we go. I lean on to ICF competence there. They say go by what the coachee brings the agenda. Don't bring in your own agenda. So if you want to discuss this, I'll discuss that with you, and you reflect, I reflect. We'll share our reflections. But then the dilemma ends in my mind. Once he says, no, I don't want to inform, then it's his problem of dilemma, because this, as we said, ethics are very personal. So I'm not breaching my ethics. I've checked on that. That have you informed your organization? If he says I have no, I don't want to, fine. That's your choice now, right? That's the way I.
That's that's the I think and if we look at both the point of views, I think that gives you a thinking framework as to how to approach these dilemmas, which is a pretty common one because sometimes situation takes a turn which can go in a different way during the process of as we show up as coaches and leaders. So, Wendy, coming back to you, where does courage come in the ethical practice?
I think it's there all the time. No, there's a reason why historically people like to claim that they're really high on ethics, like they're very strong, they got a strong ethical spine, and they probably do mostly. But it requires a lot of gumption to get in and have these nutty conversations and to actually have a look at yourself beyond just knowing what your values are in any particular circumstance, beyond what your morals are even. But also understanding that there's laws in place around some circumstances, and maybe those laws aren't really high on ethics either, but we still have to abide by them. So I think it takes a hell of a lot of courage to do anything. And so we have to be cultivating the courage to be able to do that. And I spoke to how we might do that just previously. But courage, I think, is so central to actually taking the action beyond just looking at what's going on, that I've built a course on cultivating courage, basically. Because I think that coaches need that in particular. They've kind of confused a bit about what ethics are and beyond a compliance tick box at a coaching code or any other particular code you might adhere to. And they often see it as being compliance and rule bound and don't necessarily distinguish between the difference between what the rules are within. The rules are normally a process, and the ethics is how you think through the dilemma to understand it, to then get to the process of what is it that this particular entity says that how should I behave when I figure this out. And so you need to find a way to behave, to follow the rule, to once you've investigated the ethics part of it. And I think I've lost my train of thought there. You'd have to bring me back.
Yeah. So,
Yeah, go
uh,
ahead, Yogesh.
yeah, no, I just want to give her a thought there, because I know, I mean, Wendy has got so much to share and so much to, talk about on this subject. I would urge Wendy to you to look at this point in time. If you could, because ethicality is your own term, in a way you have coined it and brought it through coaching. Would you like to, share with us how do you differentiate ethicality from ethics?
Yeah, that's a great one.
Well, ethics is embedded in ethicality.
Hmm.
Ethicality just extends ethics to include the action taking.
Okay.
And I just remember your question was on courage. It just came back to me. And so that's what ethicality is. It encompasses the whole lot. Historically, everyone sits with ethics as saying it's something we're thinking about and sitting in and, gazing at our navel and wondering about who, what, where, how with life and how that shows up. And we get stuck there. So ethicality gives it a bit of a drive and connects to the action piece. So it encompasses all of it, ethics and action, as
Yeah.
opposed to ethics on its own. And yeah, we need a hell of a lot of courage to do all that. And that requires a whole heap of psychological functioning, which I think coaching does. You know, as coaches, we are not only there to be showing up as ethical as possible in our practice, but we have an obligation to be coaching through a lens of ethics as well.
Right, right.
And to do that, we have to cultivate a lot within ourselves, a lot of awareness of knowing and understanding how ethics works, to be able to then be asking questions that, you know, somewhat like having someone who focuses on well-being in their coaching, which I do, and I do it implicitly and not explicitly.
Right.
That's just fundamental to who I am. But I now layer in ethics as well, so my questions will rise around some making them think through their decisions, why they're making them, and to get that rationale for themselves. So there's the deep, dark why question in coaching, huh?
Yeah.
Let's say,
Yeah.
keep away from why. I say, you know, maybe it has a place.
Yeah. But that thanks for sharing that, because courage is the bridge between ethics and ethicality. So if you're able to act on that, and to act on that, you need courage, right? So it's a beautiful way you're saying it. Thank you very much for that. Yeah.
So I've got one for you, Yogesh, especially, okay,
Okay.
from Shiva. He says, when in the world, by and large, we are in a survival mode and a competitive, mode, does ethics have a place? Now, it's a yes and no question, but I expect you to give it context.
Well, I think ethics as Bendy and I, we shared our thoughts at the start. Ethics has got a very personal flavor to this, right? There are people, folks, leaders, individuals who would stick to their values and ethics no matter what the circumstances are, right? There are people who need to make some compromises based on the context. There are people who would always make compromises in any case, they won't care what's happening or what's things around. So I think those are the three scenarios which play out, right? Can I be ethical in this situation and don't harm anybody? But the
Hmm.
fundamental survival instinct says, that let me just take care of myself first, right? So that is where the difference lies. If I'm able to, say, oh, I need to fight this situation out. I know it is against me. It is a tough one for me, and that's where the beautiful word of resilience comes into, right?
Hmm.
Because the action which Wendy talked about, you need resilience to keep on repeating those actions despite adversity around it. So it's a very personal choice where you give up. You give up because you think context demands it. You give up because you think, in any case, no, let me go with the flow because nobody's watching me. As Ken Blanchard said, a very famous statement is, your true character is revealed when nobody is watching you, right?
Yeah.
So you're doing whatever you're doing. So those are the kind of situations. There's no straight yes or no answer to this. It's very contextual, linked to your personal thinking, values, and ethics.
If I can just
Thanks.
pick up on that resilience point that you about needing resilience to walk the path, you do. But what I'm proposing is that you actually become more resilient the more often you walk the path of ethicality.
Right.
And it's fulfilling in and of itself. It's confidence enhancing. It supports your well-being. And I think of it in terms of, you should have made some particular course of action that would have been the best one to take, but it just felt like too big an ask.
Yep.
And so you don't, or you do. So if you don't, I say that in time, it's going to eat away at you. And it's going to impact your confidence in showing up where you need to show up. That will impact your well-being and how you see yourself, how you understand yourself. It'll have a negative impact across time, unless somehow you're someone who can actually just get rid of it and it never affects you. But I don't think many people can do that. But if you do take the course of action that you have rationaled is the right one,
Yeah.
and it's hard work, that you come across it again and again, the more often that happens, the stronger you become, the more confident you are, and the less like a mountainous endeavor it seems. It's more that you've just building so much of your inner resources that you are more resilient and you are experiencing more well-being and more confidence, and they're more like stones and pebble steps as opposed to being mountainous steps.
Right. Yeah. Great.
Beautiful. Thanks. I have a tough question for both of you. Okay. And this
Yeah,
comes
you're
from
going first then.
Also, were you asking easy ones?
now. So I'm kind of upping the game here, people.
Okay.
So, and this is something which you'll have to probably dig in. So this comes from Jigar, okay, and he says, in your journey to both of you, what is one ethical blind spot most coaches slash leaders fail to notice?
Mm. I would say the depth of their biases, the depth and the breadth. And I don't know that we'll ever really uncover that fully, but the more you can become aware of it and to see how they show up and where they are, the better off you are, I think.
Yeah, I love that. Yogesh, your thoughts?
Yeah. I think what we see commonly here, of course, what Wendy said is very, very powerful about the biases. And we have also seen that many times coaches tend to become not the coaches, but the directors of the lives of the coachee. So they go into suggestive mode, and at the first instance, they drop in with their suggestions. They don't understand the real perspective, because coaching as a whole goes as a systemic thing rather. And without understanding the entire the gamut of that person's situation, they start giving suggestions, or they start giving, and they think they are doing a great job because they're helping him out to find a solution, while coaching talks about more of reflection, looking at reflection of the other person. And in my mind, Sandeep, we have been working for, I mean, 2.5 decades we have been working together. But what happens in that situation is that when you're looking at that, I have that mindset, or I have that feeling that I need to go in a particular direction, and I want to take that person in particular direction. I unconsciously tend to go there. And it happens more when I have worked at a senior level in organizations, because many coaches
Mhm.
come from there. They think that I know it all, right?
Yeah,
I need to I need to tell the person, and I need to make him a better person in my own way, instead of looking at what mode he needs, right? So I think that's a very strong thing we have seen happening.
I love that. In fact, so what I'm hearing is when we start seeing ourselves in client or our direct reports
Yeah.
image, probably we need to ask a deeper question, what am I doing kind of a thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that brings another question from Ronald from Bangalore. He's saying, ethics is tends to be for most practical purposes, open for interpretation. So how black and white or how definitive it can be across situations, and is it black and white or is it subject to interpretation?
Oh, I think it's a rainbow of grays.
Go ahead, Wendy. Expand that thought.
Yeah, well, black or white, the binary, there's a right way, there's a wrong way. I think and they're your only two options. And I think there are always multiple ways. We just have to nut them out, get in, dig in, understand them. And so I say, rather than it being black and white, it's a multitude or a rainbow of grays. But that's actually the beauty of ethics and ethicality, is that there are a rainbow of grays as opposed to a black or white positioning on anything. You can take a principled approach on something, but that doesn't
Mm,
mean it's necessarily ethical. And if you're going to be principled, then you are probably doing a black or white. But as soon as you enter ethics
mm,
in its thinking, then you are in the rainbow of grays.
yeah. Yogesh, your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, when I'm reflecting on this, Gray, and of course she's very right, and I fully agree with her. It's a question of which shade I choose, right? And that's a very powerful reflection. And many times when we are successful with a particular approach, we keep on repeating it because we see success as the real outcome, not the way I'm acting at that point in time. No, that is where the critical question of examining my own values, my ethics come into play. No. And if I'm getting success with that, I mean, look at it. I give a very I kind of believe in two things. One thing is that you need to make money, so that's the common objective. How you make money, you know, are you doing
Yeah.
ethical business? Are you doing smuggling? Are you doing whatever you can do? And after some point in time, that becomes way of life. Ethics, that becomes my ethical practice and my ethicality. So I think it's a highly individualized choice to which shade I want to pick up. And there come moments in life when you reflect what shade you want to go into. But we don't do that very often until and
Mhm.
unless some tragedy happens or a life-changing event happens when we start reflecting and changing. So that's my
Sure.
limited view on that.
Sure.
How wonderful it would be if leaders in organizations were making decisions in a hierarchy
Yeah,
rather than competitive advantage. Maybe the competitive advantage is that you're making decisions firstly through an ethical lens, then through a financial lens, then through all the other lenses that come through. But rather than ethics going, okay, this is where we've decided, does it really fit ethically? If they even ask that, why not that be the first lens that you look at?
Yeah, that's a great thought. Actually, not an easy thought to act on. Yogesh,
right.
I can see you are wanting to jump in.
What I'm thinking is if we start with that question of ethics and ethicality, half of the businesses will shut down across the globe.
And
Because
open the Strait of Hormuz.
so
We're not getting into politics here.
No, 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 no. That's geography, Wendy. Okay. Yeah, but I have a question from Pankaj here, and I think it's a very valid question and has a cultural context to it. So, where should we draw us as coaches the ethical line between influence, behavior, and respecting individuality?
Like there's a strong line there to hold. I think that we're always influencing and coaching just by the very questions that we ask. There's
yeah,
some kind of direction there and some kind of influence. I don't know that we can put a barrier up against that completely, other than really hold it in ourselves as coaches, the understanding that the very question I'm about to ask could influence this person. Am I holding that responsibility well? Am I recognizing that does this person have the capacity to sit with that question? Or are they seemingly, as I know them across time, even a short period of time, are they someone where you see they may be influenced more than others? So it's really about knowing the person you're in front of and asking the questions to determine whether you feel that it's an appropriate question or not, because we're always influencing. I don't think we
Yeah.
can get around that.
yeah,
Hmm. I can see that chat box is warmed up quite a bit, and
yeah,
people are, asking questions. And the Manthan has started. Manthan is churning in local language,
yeah.
Wendy. So people.
Sandeep, if I may just add a small anecdote here. You know,
Hmm.
um, if you start telling a person, no matter how healthy he is, if you start
Hmm.
telling him, you're not looking good today, right?
Hmm.
And you repeat it 3 times in a day. And next day morning, say, I think you're looking a bit sad today, right? You'll actually make him sad. Then he would
Yeah.
start reflecting and wondering, what is going wrong with me?
What's going on? Why do I feel sad? Well, why do I
Yeah.
look sad? I feel all right. I was all
Yeah.
right before I was talking to you.
So that is where these behaviors come into play. And coaches, most of the times, they go into directive mode. As I said earlier, if you're a seasoned leader in the organization and you've seen success, they don't care about this. I know all. You need to learn from me, listen from me. My reflections are more important than yours. Take it from me. So that becomes a behavior challenge there. Yeah.
I want to weigh in on both of you, and be very vulnerable. I faced a big challenge as a coach. Now, here is a client of mine. We have a great relationship. This person, really values the time. When goes beyond the mandate given to 12 coaching sessions as per the organization, fights with HR, gets it extended to 18 session. In my heart, it's good business, and we are having a great relationship. Both find value and takeaways, and we are enjoying that. I'm not sure. I was the first time I felt the real weight of that line of being ethical or not being ethical. Was, am I building dependency and am I taking advantage of the situation by allowing this situation to happen? So I want both of you to help me here. And this is a real question. The client is ongoing. Okay, can't reveal because of the confidentiality and other stuff.
There's a common model drawn from the psychotherapeutic literature around called the drama triangle. And that is, now I have to try and remember all the 3 points. There's 3 points to this drama triangle. And one of them is around, being the person that rescues everyone all the time. And I think if you are naturally a person like that, where you're a big giver and you don't have strong boundaries around that, you're just naturally giving all the time or naturally wanting to support, as we do as coaches, that we have to be really aware of when we overstep as coaches and what is appropriate for this relationship, where fundamentally you have the obligation as a coach, I believe, whether the person wants you to openly work with that or not, but you need to be supporting them to have their own autonomy, to make their own decisions, to have the confidence they need for what they're looking for. And you can't do that if you're sitting in that rescue mode, overly kind, doing too much, and so creating a dependency on you for what they might choose to do.
Yeah. Yogesh, your thoughts?
Yeah, I think I kind of lean into what she's saying. At the same time, the question here is to how far I would like to go to help him,
Hmm.
because it also is there that if what kind of tone and texture of those conversations is happening. Is he trying to seek something repeatedly from you as a coach? Then certainly you need to take a call, where to, halt it. Because many times they come with the similar nature of problem. I had a fight with him, I had a fight with her, my boss is not listening, my HR is not listening. That means everybody around him is not listening to him or her. So I think that's the time to take a call. Is it repetitive in nature or is bringing something more, which is kind of concerning him or more bothering him?
Yeah.
So,
Now,
so
here is the
that's,
complexity. I'm sorry I'm butting in, but
yeah, yeah,
the complexity was this person achieved success
right,
and achieved the goal. And
right,
that became a self-fulfilling prophecy in a way. And
yeah,
he, somewhere I know, attributed to the relationship we had.
yeah.
Can you see it was not easy in that sense?
Right. Yeah. But then, no, we all know then we are at the second level of helping him to solve the problem. Not making him independent enough to solve his own problems.
Hmm.
Right. So we are working on the context or the situation, but not working on the person himself or herself. Right. So that's where the difference in my mind is there.
Hmm. I think that's a good thought.
Yeah.
So early success can also be an ethical dilemma. Yeah. So we're getting lots of it, so which is a very similar one, which Aminu says, how do you draw the line when coach is selling and promoting himself, which is part of what I think we just talked about
Yeah. Yeah.
in the ethical sense. Then uh, Jigar has a question. Coach focus on ultimate objective may supersede what others may feel ethical. Okay, example, which he says Lord Krishna in Kurukshetra and Chanakya with the. This is basically I need to give you a little bit of cultural context to translate this, Wendy. So we have a cultural a book which talks about ethical practice, where even destroying something is ethical in the context of the situation, because that's the dharma which one has to, adorn. So it has that angle. So
I
I don't
guess
know
it's
whether
the
I'm
way
clear
you
in my,
do it.
yeah, why you're doing it.
It's how you do that that I think is where the ethics arises. It might be saying that well, you said it's ethics to destroy something. I wonder, though, if they actually mean destroy. I question the use of the word destroy in the English language,
Yeah,
because I think it's maybe just having to sever ties or to break it, which is not destroying it. And so then it takes me back to the process, how you do it. So you might think you're being ethical because you're following something you're going to break it and destroy it. But in fact, the way you do it is anything but of the highest ethics that you can think of. So
oh,
it's much more layered than just following the rule.
yeah. And yeah, I think that's a better word. It's breaking the status quo, and that is more akin to the question which is there. Yogesh, your thoughts on creating new over the old?
So I think, I mean, we all know about Mahabharata and Gita, but I think it's a question of what are you trying to create after destroying it in a way. If you're dismantling something, what is the purpose, as Wendy said, and why are you doing it? So if it is a doing it for a good cause, many times you destroy a building or kind of implode that building because you want to create something new or do something. But the challenge is that as human beings, we don't do it on
Hmm,
ourselves. you know we are not ready to look inside and break what is not right there and fix it and create something new, and that's where the coaching piece comes into play in human
correct.
beings. And at the same time, if you look at this, I mean, of course, I'll encourage everybody who's on the call, visit Wendy's websites, and also because she is a storehouse of information, knowledge, research on ethics and ethicality. And this today the time is short, just we are about to be on 5-10 minutes more. But if you want to ask any question which is there, me, you can ask question anytime. No, I
Yeah, yeah,
dedicate those 10 minutes. I think last 10 minutes we have got, or 14 minutes, to Wendy, where you want to say
yeah.
something or a specific
I
question.
want to check in with Wendy on a particular phrase which she uses in her work, which is courage is becoming, connect with ethics. Wendy, your thoughts around that area?
Yeah, so we kind of leaned on that earlier in the chat, where it was about cultivating the courage and that cyclic process is that each time you enter, walking the decisions that you make, you're becoming something. We don't ever stay the same. When we look at my courageous becoming model, it has 8 movements. And one of those movements is where we sit in and we actually aren't doing anything, but we're pulling in all of our experience and knowing a new knowing from an experience that we've just walked through, and integrate that into who we are. So we become something slightly new, refined in some way, impacted by generally positively, once we've taken the learning from it, from the path that we've walked. And that is courage cultivating.
That's a that's a very nice way of framing it. I love that. So, a couple of questions from the audience, which is there. I can sense by the nature of question they are coaches. Okay, so how to hold back oneself from getting into suggestive mode, especially when you have been in a similar situation and something has, worked for you. The I know it
Yeah,
syndrome.
I've got this podcast called Changemakers in Conversation. And last year I did a whole host of conversations. I just went a bit crazy. And one of them was a former L'Oreal international executive, head of a new unit at the time when he took on this new role. And he's a coach now. And he said one of the biggest challenges that he has had transitioning from that executive role to that coach presence was to hold back all his knowledge and skills and understanding of being an executive, because that doesn't help the coaching person. If they want mentorship or they want consulting, he has it all there to give them. But as a coach, he's had to learn to hold back, learn to unwind that all-knowing person. But I think there are many people like that. For example, I'm a registered psychologist. I'm trained therapist. I have a degree of knowledge that I've had to study and understand. So on human thought and thought, behavior and emotions, I have a lot to talk about if I'm talking with someone. And I think there's a time and place to use that, but I need to ask permission to deliver that information. So I think if from looking about ethics and saying, when do I hold back and when do I go forward? If I ask permission to share something and I'm granted that permission, then I can share it. And if it's not wanted, if they decline it, then I don't share it. That's their choice. But I asked permission. And that's the important part, not to take it for granted that I'm in this relationship, we've built a contract, and now I can just share whatever knowledge I have. That's not how it works. And it's curiously that we're talking about this when I've actually just published a paper on contracting and consent. So maybe that's why it's
We'd
sitting
love to
so
have that.
firmly
We'd
in my
love to have
mind.
that.
Right.
We have a 400 plus coaching, community. We'd love to share that with them.
That's at the Journal of Coaching Ethics. It's quite literally just published
Okay.
this morning. So
Okay. So that'll be hot out of the oven kind of a thing. And so another question. This one is probably Yogesh. You can pick it up. And when we are talking about how when we are talking about contracting as a process and as a step in the coaching process. Okay. So how important is talking about ethics at that time? Is ethics a conversation? That's the sum and substance of the question.
I think though Wendy is more qualified to talk about ethics, I'll share my bit here. I think ethics is an ongoing part in any conversation, and sooner you bring it and display it, better for all of us, right?
Yeah.
For example, you know that I always start the conversation, any coaching conversation, telling it's confidential, right? It is a catalytic process, and it is about change of behavior, right? If something is going out of that framework, I remind them gently, politely, look, this is what we are trying to accomplish here. So I think ethics have to be started at every, I mean, taken care of at every step, not the, it had no beginning or no end in my mind. But rest I leave to Wendy. Wendy, before you respond to that, just one thought clicked in my mind. Culturally in India, if a coach has not given any suggestion, if they're not, said something you do this way, the coachee feels, I didn't get anything from you. Asking
yeah,
questions, trying to find answers from me. So just link in your thoughts with in this context also.
yeah. And I think, that's something that I thought about when I wrote this paper
Okay.
about contracting and consent, because I'm aware that a lot of my way of being initially is coming from my Western frame. I am Western. I'm from Australia. That's where I studied and trained, etc. I can't hop out of that, and I don't really want to. But I'm aware that other cultures ask you and have different expectations about how coaches show up.
Right.
So I've thought about that in relation to contracting and consent. And I thought, well, if we're asking, listen, I've got something to say about this. Are you okay if I share it with you? Then I think we're taking care of the cultural nuances that show up in coaching around delivering information. But I'm doing it in a respectful way of not assuming that they want to hear it, not assuming that anything about it other than I'm asking if you'd like to hear it. So if I was coaching someone in India and they're expecting, or even China, a lot of the Asian countries expect someone to show up with degree of specialization. And so if I'm coaching someone from those cultures that expect that, and I ask, because I've got something to give here other than my coaching self, and I ask them if they want to know, then I think I'm taking care of that pretty solidly. But I'm taking care of it in a way that I see as being ethical, if I
Right.
want to go to the binary, because I've asked and then they've said yes or no, and then I've followed that yes or no. They haven't said no and I've tried to worm my way around it anyway. They've said no and I've stayed with the no, or they've said yes and then I deliver it. And so then they're getting, from a cultural perspective, and they want that bit of specialized knowledge, then they're getting that. But they've said yes to it. It's an explicit yes, I'm happy to hear this. And I think from an ethics perspective, we're hitting the nail on the head.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Mm.
fantastic. Thanks. This is the last question for the day, and this is especially for everyone who's queued in. And for those who are listening right now, okay, how might they begin to engage more deeply with ethics in their own work? Wendy, you go first, and I'll let
Well,
Yogesh has the last word.
now I'm going to be salesy, and it's not my natural position. But like I feel like I don't have I feel I just have one thing to say, and that is to go and do the Ethics Beyond the Code course because it's designed deliberately to around my work and to have people understand what ethics and ethicality is, and to build their capacity and capability. It doesn't tell them what to think and do. So that's my question, to delve in and challenge yourself a little. Come
Thank
to the
you. Thank
conferences, do
you.
the reading, get the discussion groups happening.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, I mean, if I look at it in a context, ethics, if I have got my own ethics clear with me, then it is more likely that I'm being going into ethicality zone. But many times we don't have clarity on our own ethics. What do ethics mean to me? Because if I ask this question, what does ethic mean to you? Many people would respond differently. So I think somewhere we need to converge on what ethics are, right? And what that means to me personally. Now, I may not act according to that in all the situations. Contextually, things do show up in different fashions, you know. But the question is, what are my own ethics? And they drive from what are my values. And that comes from who I am as a person and what kind of person I want to be, right? And those are very deeper reflections which most of us don't do. Some coaches do, some coaches also don't do it because it's a profession we take. But at the end of the day, it boils down there. Who am I? What are my ethics? How do I want to show up to other people? And what I need to stand for? And that goes to a greater depth if you think what legacy I want to leave behind. So those are the kind of linked questions which we can play with.
Yeah, it's interesting because I see a lot of that as being your morals,
Yeah,
and ethics is engaging in the thinking around all of that.
yeah, yeah. And sometimes, Wendy, maybe in future, or maybe you've got some paper on that, we would like to, seek your advice on how do you differentiate morality, or ethics, or values, or purpose, because they all kind of, get mixed up most of the times, right?
Yeah, they have to do my course.
I like it.
Yes,
I like it. Yeah, sure. Yeah,
that's fantastic.
because that's a very mix up kind of a thing in everybody's mind most of the times.
Yeah.
I love the fact that I think one, there's no clear, straight answer, and it has to evolve through self-awareness, congruence, and
Yeah,
how I show up in my response and behavior and action. Ultimately, it is decided by the decisions we take at different points in time in coaching as a process,
right.
leadership as a journey.
Yes.
So I want to
Yeah.
really thank you, both of you, from bottom of my heart for giving us this opportunity. Wendy, especially you, for taking the time out and sharing your thoughts, wisdom with all of us. I think you can judge by the reactions and the love signs and the heart signs which are coming up that you will become a popular person with our coaching faculty and community. You guys, as usual, great to lean on you and your thoughts and your experience all the time. Thank you, everyone, wherever you are joining from. Okay, and thanks for your presence. Thanks for your questions. They were great, and that makes this conversation that much richer.
Thank you very much. Just one thing before we disengage, Wendy, I got many messages. People say we couldn't join. We're on the road because it's time to go back home from office, right? And so almost 40 messages in my inbox. They are saying, sorry, we can't. We want to join. Network is not good, and so on and so forth. So maybe in due course in time, we have to invite you again. To take care of those aspirations. Yeah.
Sure. Okay, we'll do that. And thank you for having me. I'm glad we finally made this chat.
Yeah.
It was a
I
little
was
bit
the
of a
difference this
journey.
time. I was the difference.
Yes, yes, yeah,
See
yeah.
you. Thank you. Have a
All credit goes.
your glass of wine is ready, Wendy.
Okay. And thanks for all the participants for being here. This is an odd hour, I know, in the evening for India time. And
Mm.
many of you might have delayed your dinner, or you might be, kind of trying to think about it. So go on, enjoy it, and have a wonderful reflection on what Wendy shared with us today. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone. Have a great day. Bye bye.
Bye. Bye for now.